7:05. If we can all rise for the pledge. Great. So then that brings us into discussion, possible action on matters emanating from executive session. Could I have a motion to approve the stipulated agreement regarding student conduct as presented in executive session? We have a motion by Mr. Scalozzi and a second by Ms. O'Donnell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstention? That motion passes. Then before we move on, could I have a motion to add the Head Start grant approval to new business letter D? We have a motion by Ms. O'Donnell and a second by Ms. Gallo. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. That is added to new business. That brings us into student recognition and marching band. Great. Again, congratulations on all the accomplishments. That brings us into public comment. If there is anyone from the public that would like to make public comment, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. . Thank you. If there are any other members of the public, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Thank you. If there are any other members of the public that would like to give public comment, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And I'll do one last call for public comment. Seeing none, that brings us to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Montini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In September, I shared with the board results from the state assessment data that we received from last year from the state of Connecticut. I did a rather lengthy presentation, some 38 slides or so. Every year following the results being released at the beginning of the year, let's say September, late August, the state then calculates, per federal and state guidelines, an accountability report. So I put together a presentation to share with you the accountability report that was released mid-December this year, which is directly related to the state assessment results that I shared with you in September. So you'll hear some of the things that I'll say tonight are in line with and parallel with some of what I communicated to you earlier in September. Now, this had been put on pause due to the pandemic and our pause in some of the testing, and it's the first time that we have results in a few years. So just a quick overview, the Connecticut Next Generation Accountability System for districts and for schools, it's a feedback mechanism, often like a report card, where schools receive metrics across 12 indicators. The accountability report serves as a guide to track improvement efforts. It promotes transparency, recognizes successes, and satisfies federal and state requirements. A lot of the requirements for states to develop accountability metrics are grounded in the federal's Every Student Succeeds Act. And this particular mechanism, the Next Generation Accountability Report, is in line with some of those guidelines. So the 12 indicators upon which we are measured are academic achievement. I shared academic achievement scores with you, those that are meeting the levels, meeting the standard levels of proficiency. Then there's the academic growth, how much growth they're making over time compared to their previous score. There's assessment participation rate, that's not scored, but you have to maintain 95% or better, both for all students and for the high needs group, which I'll sum up again in 1 second. This will impact your overall school category, could impact your overall school category if you dip below 95%. Chronic absenteeism, which is being absent from school for any reason for 10% or more. Preparation for college and career readiness, access to courses, those taking courses. And then number 6, preparation for college and career readiness, students passing one type of either an AP exam, dual IB, or dual enrollment college credit course. Graduation, on track in 9th grade is an indicator. Graduation, the 4-year rate that we talk about a lot. And then a 6th-year adjusted cohort graduation for those with high needs. Metrics for post-secondary entrance, physical fitness, and arts access. Some of these indicators are split into 2 categories, which would be for all students, and then the high needs group, which is comprised of those that need or qualify for special services with an IEP, L, or from socioeconomic disadvantaged backgrounds. So qualifying for free and reduced lunch. For us, that would be direct certified. So what you see here is a line graph comparing MPS and the state. You'll see the trend lines are similar, as are some of the metrics going back to 2015-16 when it started. Then we were improving in 16-17, and then had some dips. 2018-19 was the last year that we had results for the accountability metrics. You'll notice this is one of the themes that I had shared, where we dipped a little more than the state average this past year, which is what you can see in 21-22 in the line graph there in the plot. So what you have on the screen, and that's small, which is why I did a printout in front of you, you should have a hard copy of the accountability report. I numbered each row so that if you had a question, you can refer to the number row, or immediately to the right of that number, you will see the indicator number. So in terms of reading this report, 1A, ELA Performance Index for all students. If you go across, you'll see that our index rate was 60. The state sets an overall target of 75. We earned 40 of the 50 points, which is 80% of the points earned. And if you look immediately to the right, to that last column, state points, that's where you can compare Naugatuck's points, percentage of the points, versus the state average. So we, in ELA performance for all students, achieved 80% of the points, whereas the state average was 85.6. So you can go through each one of the indicators, 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D, 1A through 1F being related to performance, 2, A, B, C, D, E, F being growth, 4, chronic absenteeism, and then the last are all the individual preparation for college and career readiness, on track to graduation, physical fitness, arts access. You'll notice that some of the percentage of Naugatuck's points earned and the state points are bolded. Those would be those are our relative strengths related to being higher than the state average. And I think if we go to the next slide. We highlighted our performance from our high needs subgroup outperformed that of the state in English, in math, and in science, something of which we're proud. Anytime we receive data from state summative assessments, any type of data, it's a part of who we are to embrace the data, to peel the onion, to use the data to inform our practice, to reflect, to engage in continuous improvement. Sometimes the data takes a little bit to get here. So some of this information we've already had. It's directly related to, a lot of this is directly related to performance data that I shared with you in September. Some of the information is a little newer, like the stuff that comes from TCS in regards to graduation, on track to graduation, etc. Our 4-year graduation rate was strong. Our 6-year graduation rate for high needs is strong. We have two schools of distinction. That's Andrew Avenue and Hopbrook Elementary School. I'll talk about those two schools momentarily. That and our strengths would be, and our relentless focus to maintain a laser-like focus on growing each and every child in each and every class. And we'll use this data to make changes in our strategic plan, reflect, to revise, and move forward to shrink gaps and increase student achievement. All data presents opportunities for improvement. This data, you'll notice chronic absenteeism, which, not to make an excuse, but the spike in chronic absenteeism is to be expected when you have the flu and COVID and protocols where if people are not feeling well, you don't want them to come to school. That's why if you take a look at indicator 4B, which is number 14, the chronic absenteeism for high needs students, we received 0 points, and that's what the state average was, 0 points. Because if you have above 30% of any particular group in chronic absenteeism, you can't get any points, right? So that's an opportunity for us to continue to strengthen our efforts to ensure that students are in school as much as possible, so long as they are healthy enough to. Physical fitness, our participation rate in physical fitness impacted our scores. We have a plan and upcoming training related to improving that. Math SAT is something that we've been working on. We're continuing to work on. We have Mr. Harris will be presenting after I'm done. Progress towards English proficiency. We have, as you last year, you have funded through the budget and through the Alliance grant, expanding and having acquiring and hiring more L teachers of our multilingual learners. We also have a redesigned program that we just are implementing this year. So we've already been working on that. We knew that was coming. Our numbers have increased. You know, we've been talking about that through our budget cycle for the last few years. And then preparation, the percent passing exams. And those are the, mostly here would be the AP exams, dual credit enrollment classes. So we are very proud that we had two schools recognized by the state of Connecticut as a school of distinction for 2021-2022. Andrew Avenue Elementary School is recognized for their high growth in math for high needs students, and Hopbrook Elementary School is recognized as a school of distinction for their high growth in ELA for all students and for the high needs group students. To become a school of distinction, you need to score in the top 10% of all of the schools in your category. So our two schools, Andrew Avenue and Hopbrook, were the bulleted areas of growth were in the top 10% of the elementary schools in Connecticut. For that, I hope that you'll join me in congratulating those principals that are in our audience and offering a large, well-deserved round of applause. Thank you both for all the work that you do and your relentless focus on improving outcomes for each and every one of our students. I think it speaks volumes that our focus on growth, in particular, those who, dare I say, need it the most, are achieving in the top 10% when compared to our sister schools across the state. Congratulations. So with that, I'm going to ask if there's any questions. Yes, sir. Correct. Everyone. We have all sorts of metrics, and when I did the state assessment presentation, I compared us to another group, the Alliance group, which are closer. If we were to, there are. You have to use. There's a rich database. It's really wonderful. EdSite and EdSite Secure. You can go on there and get the data and make any types of comparisons that you like. In regards to the Alliance comparison, think about a third of these indicators, we were in the top third of the Alliance districts, and about a third of these we were in the middle, and about a third of these we were in the bottom. So we take that as an opportunity to learn especially to those other communities that are like us, what is it that had us not performing? Which indicators were we not doing as well in, and what can we do better? So I can tell you chronic absenteeism, there was a lot of points for chronic absenteeism. And growth, as though we were recognized, there were still a lot of points to be made up in having some of the better growth scores that we had back in 15, 16, really 16, 17, 17, 18.
In other words, you didn't do the last time you looked at this, which was a long time ago, before you were, that you were stronger in growth.
Yes,
So it's sort of a little different now.
it is.
We're more proficient for not growing, is that?
When we had, I would agree, yes, we were more proficient, at least in the high needs, in the high needs group, with all students. But yes, when we were at our strongest, we were in the top 1 or 2 for growth out of all the Alliance districts. I was the assistant superintendent at that point. I remember it was 17, 18-ish. This is true. This is true.
I'd be interested in knowing our 5 schools, what their absentee record is. Are they comparable? Because they're 5 schools, do they have probably the same type of attendance record? Just curious.
So I would say that our chronic absenteeism wasn't really good anywhere. But they are being recognized for growth in those particular areas, which doesn't include the absentee data. One of the things that when the mayor asked about comparisons to other like groups, our chronic absenteeism seemed to be lower than in that lower third as compared to some better than, I would say, the larger cities, but out of the 33 Alliance districts, not as strong as we would like. I didn't do a comparison to DERG. I did it really only to Alliance, but I certainly can do it. There's a lot of overlap with our DERG and the Alliance. It really just takes out, I would say, the larger cities and leaves the most of the other Alliance. There's a few Alliance that are in higher DERGs. We take those out too. Yeah.
Are they taking into account the fact that, I noticed that the preparation for college and career readiness is a little lower as far as passing is concerned? Are they taking into account the fact that a lot of colleges were not really offering the resources they previously were in the last couple of years?
No, there really was no change in what they were accepting. It's the percentage of 11th and 12th graders that are passing, either met the standard on the SAT, passed an AP, IB, which we don't offer, or something like the UConn ECE college level. So no, they kept it straight, I think, because they had to. They got a waiver from the feds not to do the accountability during the pandemic. And then it needed to come back, and there was no change into a waiver that I'm aware of. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So in closing, I'll say that, like in September, when I shared the data with you, this is data that we embrace, that we own, that we are digesting, analyzing, learning from, and that I have a great team working really hard to move the needle, engage in continuous improvement, improve outcomes for all of our students in all of these categories and beyond. So we focus on the whole student. We know that these metrics are an important part of what we do, but it's not everything that we do. We know that we have arts, and we know that we have sports, and we know that we cultivate persistence and grit and citizenship and all these other things. When we focus on the whole child, and when we're relentless in our pursuit, these indicators are going to improve. And I look forward to a year from now sharing with you. Mr. Chair, at this time, I would like to invite Mr. Harris up to the podium to share the high school presentation.
at the end of Q1, we had 81% of our freshmen on track to graduate, so passing 6 or more classes. Of those 82%, 60% had B's or better in all of their classes. The high school is part of a network of schools across the state called the RISE Network, and we get far and away the highest percentage of B's or better, which I'm really proud of. And again, that number is improved from 21-22, which is the blue bar. It's right in line with where we were pre-pandemic in 19-20, which is the purple bar, and that big scary drop is when the pandemic started. And then on the other end of the spectrum, just to share some data from 12th grade, we are currently at 92%. I just checked tonight, and the numbers have gone up a little bit. 92% of our students have identified a post-secondary plan. We've got almost 64% planning on attending a 2 or 4 year college. And in terms of applications, we've got 67% of those going to a 4 year school have already applied. 26% planning on a 2 year school have already applied. And those are big jumps over last year. At this time last year, we had about a third fewer students who had already applied to a school, a 4 year school, about 13% fewer who had applied to a 2 year school. We've seen a big jump in the number of students who are planning to go to a trade school having actually applied at this point. Again, I attribute that to systems that our counseling department has worked really hard to put in place, especially around meeting more regularly with students, having much more specific conversations about what their post-secondary plans are, keeping track of that data. On November 15th, the state had a free application day where students could apply for free to UConn and all the state universities. Our counselors made a big push to make sure that every senior was ready to hit submit on their application that day, which is why I think we had a pretty big jump. They've also been leading a FAFSA task force this year. In your accountability report, you see there's a gap between our number of students graduating and our post-secondary entrance. One of the causes of that we typically see is when the financial realities of college hit over the summer, some families make the decision not to enter. So we want, as one of our goals, want to make sure that as many students as possible leave NHS having completed the FAFSA, knowing what they're going to get in terms of grants and loans from the federal government. We are at 31.4% so far this year. That's a 3% bump over where we were this time last year. And a presentation wouldn't be complete without talking just a little bit about how happy we are to be back to normal. We've had a lot of like, wow, this is the first time in 3 years we've done this thing. So we had, our first real homecoming dance inside in the gym in 3 years. Our fantastic marching band students got to go on their world tour and visit all the elementary schools. We've had, we're back to having spirit weeks. We're back to having the gym absolutely rocking for a pep rally before Thanksgiving. We're back to our, our holiday celebrations. We did a selfie with the students this year, which is on the bottom right there. And so, I think that this is all an important part of, not just students having a good high school experience, but these are the things that keep students engaged, that keep them attending regularly, that keep them coming to class. So I'll share the photos with you at the end, and thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Harris? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. Okay, that brings us to our monthly reports. Up first, we have our student rep report. So I will turn it over to Josephine and Ruby.
So first off, Happy New Year, everyone. We're very excited to continue working with you all, and we're excited for what's to come this year. Just some updates on course registration. Freshmen, sophomores, and juniors have been working for the past few weeks or about a month or so in getting their course registration all set, communicating with their teachers for course recommendations. And then this past Monday in advisory and continuing through the week, students have been filling out their course registration forms. Teachers, students, counselors, and administrators have been working to make sure that all students are meeting graduation requirements, supplementing their interests, and challenging themselves. And there have been several new, super exciting, in my opinion, additions to the program of studies, which include several high-level classes being added, as well as SAT prep course and other classes to help students supplement their interests. And yeah, we are hoping to have data on enrollment on honors and AP courses in next month's report. We didn't want to do it too early so we can make sure that everyone had the chance to fill out the form, but we'll have that for you next month. And then finally, semester one ends on Monday, January 17th, and students will begin their new half-year courses on the next day, Tuesday, the 18th. Teachers are working with their classes to make sure that everyone is on track for the next semester. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys. That brings us to our facility use report. Any questions on the facility use report? Seeing none, that brings us to the human resource report. Any questions on the human resources report? Seeing none, we'll move on to our enrollment report. Any questions on the enrollment report? Seeing none, brings us to the finance committee report. That's a new report because the finance committee recently met, and that's just their minutes. Any questions on their minutes there? Seeing none, brings us to the finance monthly report. Any questions on the finance monthly report? Seeing none, the curriculum committee next again. Curriculum committee met. Any questions on those? Fire drill crisis. Any questions on the fire drill? Any more questions? That brings us to old business. For out-of-state field trip provision. Could I have a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip provision with the proposed new fee? Your motion by Ms. Gallen, second by Ms. Kowski. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Brings us to new business. First item is the NHS program of study.
Cheryl starts off. Each year, at our January board meeting, the board votes to accept the program of study for Naugatuck High School. It's the time of year where our students, as previously mentioned by our student representative, are signing up for the courses for next year. We had a really good, maybe a little too long, but a really good curriculum committee meeting the other night where we discussed the program of studies amongst some other business. During that time, there's a memo in there for your review certainly. Carol's messenger presented and shared and talked about their school certificate. I'm very happy to, as our student rep said it again, mentioned in the board before parents, that we're able to offer, add 8 new courses with with limited economic impact on the budget. Essentially, no new staff are required. The existing staff is increased these courses. So we are going to be able to offer a chemistry calculus, SAT prep, photography 2 course, a unified CE course, another dual enrollment course, a partnership in entrepreneurship with the University of Delaware, a construction certification course, a UConn ECE course, a diversity in American popular music, and a mentorship or tutoring experience course for, I would say, upper class students who support generally freshmen as we move forward. So there are some minimal costs associated with training that can be absorbed in grant allocation. The grants that we applied for, really of all of this, the only sizable cost would be the purchase of 10 digital cameras for the 2 course. Note that when you're approving this today, you're approving the course selection. Through the budget process, we will bring you the cost of about $10,000 associated with the camera. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the 2023-24. Mr. Harrison, right?
Okay, so then can I have a motion to approve the NHS program of study for the 2023-2024 school year? We have moved by Mr. Kowski, and a second by Mr. Allen. Any discussion? Any other comments? None. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? That brings us to the APS school calendar proposal for 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a draft 23-24 school calendar for your approval this evening. This calendar is very much in line with previous Naugatuck Public School calendars. You will notice, however, that there have been 2 additions, one in September and another in May, for a proposal of 2 half-days for professional learning. No, I got it. Sorry. Let me take a second. These dates were added because we have a Connecticut mandated reading program that the district is exploring currently. We're also preparing to roll out the next phase of the illustrative math rollout, which impacts elementary as well as our high school. And we also are currently piloting a new science program in 6 through 8 that we're looking to adopt. With the addition of all of this new programming, we'd like to be able to support the teachers in professional learning throughout the year and ensure that we are able to provide fidelity of implementation of those programs. I'm not sure if anyone has any
Okay.
questions.
Then could I have a motion to approve the 2023-2024 school calendar as proposed? Motion by Mr. Solozzi. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Cooney. That brings us to the school transportation contract. Okay, could I have a motion to approve the contract with Student Transportation of America as discussed in executive session? We have a motion by Ms. Gallo. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us to the Head Start grant approval. Could I have a motion to approve the Head Start grant in the amount of $1,058,362? We have a motion by Ms. Grant. Do we have a second? And a second by Mr. Solozzi. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us to the approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the December 8th, 2022 regular monthly Board of Education meeting? We have a motion by Ms. Makowski. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. O'Donnell. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? That motion passes. That brings us to board communications. Does anyone have any board communications that they would like to share? Yes, Ms. Makowski. Awesome. That's great to hear. Any other communications? Seeing none, that brings us to adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, yes.
The curricula for Family and Consumer Sciences was developed. It is, even though we have the curricula, it's not in my budget recommendation to add it. But we could talk about if it's the board's prerogative to do so during our budget meetings. But we have the course developed. The curriculum committee can't add the financial, so the curriculum committee did its job. They reviewed the curricula that was developed. But it'll be the issue of, is it the right time to implement, given everything that we have going on financially? So during the budget process, we'll be able to have that conversation. If we're choosing to reinstitute that program now, or if we're going to wait. So I had shared, and I think it's in the minutes of the curriculum committee, that as of right now, it's not in my budget recommendation because costs associated with so many other things have increased. I also shared, and I think this is in the the minutes as well, perhaps not fully, that we're ready if the board says, okay, thank you for your recommendation, but we want to fund it and do it anyway. So we'll to be continued at the next finance committee meetings and eventually the board workshops around our budget.
Last 3 years, I was almost promised that it would be in place, and I saved money a few times so we could have this program. And it keeps getting shot down, but we had other programs. They only might be 10,000 here, 10,000 there, but they add up to the whole ballgame. And I think it's an important thing for these children to learn some of their home ed things going on.
I
You
don't,
guys had it. And you
I
all
don't,
loved it.
I don't disagree. It would be, I think it would be a nice asset to City Hill School.
We can find grants for everything else. Let's see if we can find a grant for that.
Yeah, we just find ourselves in a time where grants are going away. That's all. So I don't, I would love to be able to do it. I just wonder if we are able to now. Approximately 10,000.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion by Ms. Gallo. Do we have a second? And a second by Ms. Makowski. We are adjourned.